Welcome back to the Rangers News YouTube channel. My name's James Black and I'm joined by Cameron Willis and Jordan Carlisle as we have a look ahead to this weekend's clash with Kilmarnock in the Scottish Premiership. Rangers look to build on their momentous lead at the top of the Premiership and close in on the title with Tommy Wright's second game in charge for the Rugby Park side. And we're going to kind of look in a bit of detail at the game itself and kind of how Rangers might line up. Before we do that though, we're really close to hitting 5,000 subscribers, so we really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe our videos, help us hit that 5,000 mark and help us grow the channel so we can bring these new videos and more content. So moving on to the game itself, Jordan, Cammy. Jordan, I'll come to you first. Just what's your initial thoughts on the game after the draw with Hamilton at the weekend and kind of where everything is for Rangers in the title race?
I think it's a good one for Rangers to come into. They couldn't be playing a team in any worse form. Obviously, we've seen sort of in the past that it's a couple of times this year in terms of managers coming in and making an impact. Not just when they're coming to play Rangers, but in terms of Ross County having a bit of a bounce with John Hughes coming in and Graham Alexander at Motherwell and stuff like that. It's had a good impact on those teams. They've obviously lost. They lost in midweek there, and that's 6 in a row. So they couldn't be in any worse form, and it's good in terms of Rangers going back home. Looking at the stats again this morning, I think it's 13 played, 39 goals conceded, 1, which is it's just an absolute joke, isn't it? Like so. I mean, Rangers will be confident no matter who they're playing at home, but the lack of the thing is that Wright, I think, is probably a good guy to come in and give confidence to players, and he'll have a certain way that he'll want them to play. And I imagine he has a good chance of getting a tune out of them at some stage, but it's one that Rangers should be looking to sort of capitalise on their total lack of confidence, I think, at the minute in terms of their playing squad.
Cammy, what's your
For
thoughts?
me, I think that for everything that you just said, it kind of gives me the fear a wee bit.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they're on awful form, I think the fact that they've got Tommy Wright in, I think that it's like a banana skin. Obviously, Rangers have got a perfect record at home, so you have to back them. And all things being equal, we'll go there on Saturday and win the match comfortably. But I just think it's a difficult game, and I think it comes at a really interesting point in the season. You know, I think that this juncture, we're going into the final 10 games. Rangers have to win at least 5 of them to get the title over the line. Celtic are building up a wee bit of momentum. Kilmarnock obviously been taken over by Tommy Wright, and then we've got the European game on Thursday. I just think that we could really be doing without the added pressure of a slip up in this match. So, well, I think it's going to be a tough game. I think Tommy Wright probably suits Kilmarnock in the sense that he's the way that he set up with St Johnstone's side maybe suits some of the players that kind of established themselves with Steve Clarke and stuff. And I think that it's going back to that style with experienced pros. It's certainly not going to be easy. It's probably going to be a turgid watch at times, but I'll take a sneaky 1-0 win. I'll take 3 points. I think if we get the 3 points here, I think it'll be much smoother sailing going forward. I just think that this match comes at a very, very pivotal time for Rangers, and I'm backing us to win it, but I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. I think it's going to be a very turgid 70 minutes or so before we break the deadlock. That's what I'm predicting.
You mentioned the European game coming on the Thursday there, and we'll look a wee bit more later at how the team we think is going to line up. But do you think that there's going to be much change to the side from the Hamilton game and with an eye on Antwerp, or is it kind of full guns blazing going into the last 10 games in the title race, Jordan?
I think there will be changes in the fact that at Hamilton it wasn't all guns blazing really in terms of the midfield, and obviously that will be changed. I think defensively there's a good chance that Balogun's going to come in. I know we're talking about specifics later on, but I think he'll change that just from a point of view of having all of his defensive options fit and sort of ready to go for that double header, and by extension that means I think Jack Simpson will get half an hour if Rangers are comfortable enough in the game for that to happen. I think he'll like to give him minutes. So yeah, I think the midfield will be back full strength, and I think it will be the strongest team Rangers can put out. They've obviously got some issues in terms of the forward line, and that means things are going to be limited in that direction anyway, and players can be rested in that sense before the Europa League game, but backwards of that, I think it'll be a full team.
I think the same. I don't think he's going to kind of risk it like he did with Hamilton last weekend again. I think that we need 3 points. So I'm expecting the strongest team that we can possibly put out, but we're obviously hampered by Roofe and Morelos' absence, and Defoe's obviously been out as well. It's not clear whether or not he's going to return. I was thinking the press I might have been today, but tomorrow, today, when this has been released. But maybe we'll have found out by then. But we're a little bit depleted up top. And when you think about it, I mean, we're likely going to start Kent and Hadji either side of it in, and it's quite a young forward line. So it's interesting. It's like I say, it's a tough match for me when I consider it. So I think we'll go full strength. What we have available, I think we have to, because I think 3 points in this game in particular is vital.
Does the fact that there was points dropped at Hamilton make that more a necessity? I mean, particularly with the Antwerp game, because we're sitting here as we do this, 18 points clear in the league. We're looking at Rangers having a game where ultimately they can afford to lose a couple more games and still more than likely have the title in the bag. But does the kind of nervy reaction to that draw at Hamilton really just kind of mean that Gerrard can't afford to take that gamble and maybe rest players with an eye on Antwerp?
I don't think he can. I don't think he can afford. I think it's more a question of whether you want to rest players, and I just don't think he will. I think he sort of made that clear after the game that not only will he be having a word with some people that he thought underperformed in the game, that it wouldn't be happening again. Basically, that the players with character that he talked about coming off the bench in terms of clearly Davis and Jack would be get back in the team for the foreseeable. And obviously it wasn't a question of performance that they were left out on. It was other factors in the first place. But it's a case of I think that it will be a full strength team. I think Cammy's right to say that I'm sort of looking at it there initially, being like, I think if it's a full strength Rangers team, there's no issue. It is a relatively inexperienced forward line, and we still have seen. I thought it was okay and starved the service a little bit at the weekend, but there are still question marks there. Just in the same sense that he's been brilliant when he's come on. That's a couple of games. The last couple of times he started through the middle at St Mirren as well in the cup, where it hasn't been that great, and Rangers hadn't had a huge amount of potency. But it's one of those ones. I just think that obviously people are just so used to wins at the minute, and there's so much tension around the title, and getting the 55th over the line and stuff like that. That there was a reaction at Hamilton. I think in reality Rangers could lose on Saturday and it wouldn't matter a jot. But I think it's important to a degree for momentum, and also for Rangers to keep going and maintaining their standards. I think it's been very important to sort of everyone around the club. I think this year the standard of performance and not letting that drop just because it's possible to, because the cushion is there. So I think I'm also more confident in the fact that there will be a win because of what happened last week. I think it's perfectly conceivable that it wouldn't actually matter if Rangers drop points, but I think that will not be the message at all being conveyed to the players by the coaching staff, and it will be very much full guns or all out attack and all out sort of ruthlessness, I think.
I mean, it just makes me nervous, man. The idea that we could play Kilmarnock and then not win, and then next week we've got Dundee United, we're going to win that one as well. How many would you wait to lose the lead going into the final 5 games of the season? It's like, I don't know. I think it's a difficult kind of wee juncture, and I hope that we come out it with full points, simply because it's not just Rangers fans. You know what I mean? It's everybody. It's the media. It's the rivalry action. It's everything, and I think that we says about the kind of tension around 55. I think maybe we'd kind of slacked off a wee bit. Like, I don't mean the team, but I mean the supporters, and maybe we were getting excited, and then. I mean, I don't think there's any need to panic, and I think maybe a lot of it's been overblown. But I think maybe it snapped a lot of people back into reality. Like, whoa, hold on a second, this isn't actually won yet, and until it is, I think that's going to, what you said, Jordan. I think the message is going to be go out there and pick up all 3 points and go for it, because I don't want it snowballing. And honestly, I just don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to what with the idea of it. And I just want to see Rangers a Rangers win this weekend.
Obviously, Rangers starting 11, as we have both mentioned, it's going to be heavily impacted by our wonderful compliance officer system, with both Morelos and Kemar Roof missing through suspension. Now, we spoke about the other day about the general process and whatnot. Now, I want to just kind of mention Rangers' statement on Twitter on Wednesday night after Roof's ban was confirmed. And I want to kind of get just a quick review on that and where you think Rangers need to go moving forward. Is it a case of you can let sleeping dogs lie for the time being, or I mean, have you both seen the statement? Yeah,
I've seen it. Aye.
Is it? Do you think it strikes the right tone? Is it? I mean, given kind of how it impacts the team moving forward, have we called this one right, or should it have been a wee bit kind of harder hitting?
Go ahead, Cammy. I know you feel more strongly on this than I do.
I see. To be honest, right? I think that it's what can you do about it? Genuinely, what can you do about it? Do you know what I mean? Are you going to create a big hullabaloo? Are you going to create a big stramash? Are you going to, you know what I mean? Start a fight? Start like an off-field war? You know, like what can you actually do about it? I thought that the statement itself, it took me a couple of reads to make sense of it. What actually saying here? You know what I mean? I just felt as if it was like, oh, we're just shunting this out because it's necessary, you know. But I got the underlying message, I think, was that Rangers obviously are highlighting inconsistency again and feeling as if some of the things that they're being cited for aren't being cited elsewhere. I mean, don't even feel it. That is clearly what is happening, you know. And whether or not you think Roofs was a red card or not, I know some Rangers fans don't. It obviously was. It's just the fact that other players are getting off for the same thing. I think it's a long game. Do you know what I mean, with the disciplinary process and stuff? But I don't think fans or the club can afford to get distracted by it just now. Even if we are being impacted by it, I think that we can't have any excuses. And I'm in the middle with that kind of Rangers statement on it. Like I say, I got what they were saying, but I think it could have maybe been a little bit more considered. It just seemed as if it was necessary. It didn't make a lot of sense. To me, it took me a couple of reads to kind of say what they're actually saying. But yeah, I think the disciplinary process thing is a slow burner. I don't think it's going to change overnight. And as fans, I think that even when you're watching games, rival games, and you're saying, "Oh, look at that tackle, look at this," I don't think this helps anybody. I think that we should just focus on ourselves. And if you're thinking about making people sick, the thing that'll make them sick is lifting the title. So focus on that and let's change this conversation, because it's been going on for the last 2 weeks and it's really is draining.
So, yeah. Jordan?
Yeah, I just think that, like, exactly, that you're not going to change. Like, it's not, the decision's been made, whether you agree with that or not. Then the club are, you know, certainly within their rights. They don't agree with it, they go and appeal it, doesn't work, you know, and then you release a statement, but that statement, that whatever you say, it's not going to change what the system is in that moment. And these things, you would think that those decisions aren't best made in the middle of seasons and stuff like that. So it's more for something that needs to be, I think it's something that needs to be worked at, and it's Rangers are obviously should be taking a lead in terms of how that's done off the pitch, but I feel like it's something that's best done away from the public eye almost. Maybe Rangers should say that, look, it's something that we're going to try and work on. But the more, just as soon as when everyone's putting stuff out in public, it just descends into this shambles, doesn't it? So I thought there was going to be more, you know, when they released it in that form. I thought it was going to be, you know, here are loads of events that they're going to map out in a thread, and it didn't
maybe
transpire.
Stuck in the draft.
Huh?
It's maybe stuck in the draft.
yeah, it's in that admin there.
No notice the full things no went out.
Why has no one done that though? Like a comprehensive list. I mean, I'm saying this, I work on a Rangers news website, but it's difficult to get that information, you know what I mean? Like, you can sit and you can like earmark things, but it's like a proper deluge of information you're going to have to like kind of climb through. to get it. But why hasn't there been any?
For me, the big issue with that would be is as well intentioned as that probably would be. You could make the same argument that you could watch two games side by side and see very, very similar tackles. One goes punished, one goes unpunished. You know, so it's as much as you can go, well, this didn't get cited, that didn't get cited. That happens in match events as normal refereeing decisions as well. And I think you just get to a point where it just goes in this never-ending circle where it's never actually going to move forward anyway. So it's...
Well, yeah, I saw quite a lot of stuff, wasn't it? There's all that narrative about how earlier in the season it's just Man United were getting like, you know, basically like rival fans were saying they're getting like 4 pens a game and none of them are penalties. I saw a massive thread that someone made of all the penalties that United got, basically pointing out that, you know, they don't think this one is, but that sort of, it defeats the purpose if it's made by someone with an agenda. So the person might be very good in terms of researching and getting the clips from all the stuff, but then like the third example, you might look at it and be like, oh, it's a clear penalty. So they're undermining their own thing, because then people won't even listen to it anyway, because they can see that, you know, the person is giving it from a, you know, it's not I don't know, it's not balanced the way that the people are putting it forward. So yeah, I just think it's hard to win. You know, if Rangers don't say anything, they get criticised. If they do, they say it's not strong enough. But if they do go strong, then it's creating further division and probably making it less likely that anyone's going to let them take a lead, which is probably important behind the scenes. So yeah, it's about fixing it. And it does really impact Rangers in terms of the team selection for the weekend. But at the same time, as Cammy says, the main thing is getting on with it. And there's also high quality players. You should be able to turn out Kent, £7 million man, Hadji, 3 million odd on him, and Itten nearly 3 million on him. All guys have come in the last 2 windows that can play up front against a Kilmarnock team that do not have resources like that. So Rangers should still have enough on the pitch, and it shouldn't really be an excuse then afterwards, even though it does undoubtedly weaken the team.
So moving now on to the starting 11 itself and kind of how we think the team's going to line up. So you both said you think it's going to be as full strength can be, kind of with a couple of injuries, suspensions and whatnot. Now, as we do this, we're doing this before Steven Gerrard does his press conference. So, I mean, there could be injuries that we've not been made aware of yet, but we'll go through kind of just the different kind of parts of the pitch and see how you think we should line up. So, defensively, I think a back 5, 4 of the 5 pick themselves, fair to say, which leaves one central defender, which I'm sure we're going to now rehash arguments we've made several times before.
That's basically it. I think just because Helander played, we didn't win. Balogun comes in. That's my logic behind it.
I think Balogun as well. But from the point of view that I don't think any of the members. I thought Barisic had a decent game. Maybe could have been quicker on the actual equaliser, but I don't think. I thought Tav had a poor game. Goldson wasn't as commanding as he is normally. Helander obviously made that mistake that he got away with, which is probably the most high-profile defensive error in the game. But I also think that it's important that Balogun now hasn't played for 4 games, and because of the sort of relative lack of midweek games, that's actually quite a long time. And I was having to look back through the things, and it's not since September that one of the 2 of them have played more than 4 games in a row in the league. So I think there's a good chance that Balogun comes in, and then that means going into the European game he can actually choose between the 2, and he actually did choose Balogun for a lot of the group stage games. So I think he'll want him up to speed. And there's there'll be no harm in Helander sitting out of that game, even if he intends to bring him back. But having Balogun getting a game under his belt will make sure that he has a couple of options available. And then, like I said, I think we could see Jack Simpson for half an hour, 20 minutes, 15 minutes near the end, depending on the game situation. If it's really tight, I don't think that'll happen. But if he's allowed to, I think he'd like to make that change.
I fancy Balogun as well. Pretty much the reasons outlined. That we haven't seen him as much recently. I think that maybe needs a little bit of a freshen up, and Aye, I fancy him to come back, and I fancy him to kind of put Balogun back into the starting lineup. It'd be good to see Simpson on that. I thought that he might have used him on Sunday, but he never. Was he on the bench on Sunday?
Yeah, both him and Wright were on the bench.
Maybe if we'd got the right performance, the right result, we might have seen him. But I was surprised. Surprised by the result, so therefore maybe not so surprised about the substitution. But I thought we might have seen him then. So yeah, I'd back that. If we're in a good position, we might see Jack Simpson.
The midfield three was much changed against Stackies last weekend. Bongani, Zungu, Glenn Kamara and Joe Aribo starting before Jack and Davis both come off the bench. Much change again. Those three definitely aren't starting this weekend, surely, Jordan.
Yeah, and in terms of Jack and Davis, yeah, I think Kamara didn't have a great game, and he's just a go-to guy, isn't he? Though, in terms of if you're playing a good team, I think the thing with Kilmarnock is that, I think it's hard to quantify the changes that Wright will make, but they haven't scored in 5 of their last 6 games, which is abysmal. So whether you actually need to have Kamara, Jack and Davis in there, and whether you can just go for that Davis and Jack and have a Aribo in front, I think that's probably what I would do in terms of if you're missing the sort of cutting edge in Morelos and Roof, you could do with sort of supplementing that slightly by having a more attacking midfielder, and I don't think you're risking a huge amount in terms of them hitting you in the break and stuff like that by taking Kamara out the team. So I think I'd go Jack, Davis and Aribo.
I would pick the exact same 3 for many of the reasons outlined, but also because we're the Antwerp one. I know it's obviously one game at a time and stuff, but Kamara's played every minute of Europa League football for us this season. He's absolutely vital in that competition. So I think that there's 2 kind of benefits. I think when you play with the kind of 3 more defensive-minded midfielders, you don't get that kind of creativity or kind of more forward presence that you get from Aribo, but also I think that you'll keep them fresh for that game. I think that kind of has to be it. I think it don't want to be in a game where for 70 minutes we're just passing it about the midfield 3. I think that you need that kind of ingenuity from Aribo, the movement in between the lines and stuff. I think it's the kind of game that maybe Scott Arfield would thrive on, but I think Joe Aribo will get the nod ahead of Kamara. And Jack and Davis have got to come back in surely after what he said at the end of after what Gerard said at the end of the Hamilton game. I think it's pretty nailed on that those 2 will start.
Right, leaves us in the front 3. Nick, Kamara, Roof, no Morelos. Picks itself. Itten, Hadji, Kent, or do you think Defoe could come into contention if he's fit?
I just don't think he'll be fit enough. It's 3 weeks or whatever, 4 games that he's not been in the squad for. So I just don't think. I think he would potentially, in terms of based on the fact that it didn't make a massive impact in the last game. If he was fit, I think there's a chance that he could play him. And he's obviously shown a willingness to do that at home, particularly. But no, I don't think he'd be fit enough. I think it's positive if he can get him on the bench and maybe get 20 minutes out of him at the end if needed. But no, yeah, I think he'll be it. And Kent's obviously the go-to man, and then Hadji in terms of the creativity. I think there was signs that Hadji and Itten linked up decently well in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes at Hamilton. There was a couple of flashes, and then that sort of just ended. So I think there's potential there for the 2 of them in terms of working together, and I think that's the strongest 3 that's available.
See, he started in the last 2 games against Kilmarnock this season. They're the only other domestic starts other than the Hamilton game. So there's obviously attributes that he has that are favourable for Rangers, or at least with all the kind of tactical analysation that's happening before matches that they feel is favourable for this game. So he might have even started it anyway.
I think the other ones were out in the right though.
That's the only difference. It's not having Morelos up front, because Morelos loves scoring against Kilmarnock. So it is going to be a wee bit different. It's going to change the dynamic a little. But I think that's contention. Sorry,
Scott Wright, could he come into contention for a start or too soon?
I don't think he'll start. No, I think maybe see him from the bench again. I mean, we spoke about this on Tuesday. He impressed. He popped up in good kind of positions and stuff, and he looked lively, and he looked like he wanted to get on the ball. And there was like a moment when he maybe should have shot, and he passed it. But no, I think he'll. If we do see him, it'll be from the bench. I can't imagine him starting him on this. It's just a wee bit too much pressure to kind of throw the guy in, I think.
Yeah, pretty much the exact same. I think it is too early. I also thought it was interesting that, I think Jared was very keen to not, what he actually specifically said is I don't have any praise from the players after that Hamilton game, but he was asked about, right, and he sort of did praise him, but he was also like, I think he's going to be a good little player for us. Maybe you talk about like when he talks about a Joe Aribo, he's like, oh, he could be anything. The guy's so talented. Or Glenn Kamara, like, oh, I'm keeping him here. He's unbelievable. I think he sees him as a project player who's going to play a part, and he could potentially make better. But at the minute, I don't think he, if you compare that to stuff that he says about Kent, I just thought it was interesting that like he sees Kent as a sort of superstar guy who can do everything for him. Whereas as Wright's maybe not there yet. So I don't think it'll be until Rangers potentially, in theory, have the League One that Wright actually would come into contention to start games.
If I was left up to you, that would be like four. That would be like with 2 games to go, man.
I don't want that. It was one on January 2nd.
No one till it's one, man. I think that's
getting seriously twitchy in there. That's a lockdown for you.
I just want to over the line. You know what I mean? I don't want to go into those. I don't want to go into this split thinking they're going to play with effectively the best teams in Scotland. You know what I mean? And got a wee tricky tie. We're going to go to Livingston away after Dundee United as well. I know they obviously lost at the weekend, and it's one game at a time. But if we're supporters, we can look a wee bit ahead. But we've got to go away to Livingston, and that'll be a weird one. We've struggled there. We drew there earlier in the season, so I don't want to drop points to Kilmarnock this weekend, man.
I think it's partially coloured. I did their game at St Mirren last weekend before I came in, the day before I came in, and they were woeful. Like, they were absolutely dire because they'd won the same game, the same version of fixture in September, and were brilliant. And the team was very different. I think that's one thing that I sort of had. I didn't see the full game that they played against Motherwell midweek, Wright's first game, but noticeably that he had changed the team a lot. So he brought guys like Chris Burke back in, who had been out. To have a guy, 19-year-old guy on loan from Crystal Palace. He comes out, experienced guy comes in. There was a few other changes across the team. They had a guy, Danny Whitehall. They just had him up front, lumping long balls to him in the St Mirren game. But at Motherwell, they brought Nicky Kabamba back in, who's is a more technical striker with a bit more pace about him and other things. So I think he'll be back to what looks, very clearly their better team. And he did that straight away. And I think they were better at Motherwell. So they will present more of a threat. And it's bad timing in that way because they didn't really look like they had a plan of any description last week. And I'm sure they will come with a plan this time around. So it will be harder than it would have been had it been a week ago. But I just think that he's going to need to do a lot, and it might take a little bit longer in terms of restoring the confidence because the run has been so bad. Like, failing to score in 5 of your last 6 games is pretty poor from a team that has a squad that has decent talent levels in it. So I think he's got a big project on. That's why I think that that's partially maybe the false sense of security. I haven't seen that last week, but I think he's got a lot of work to do to turn it around. I think he probably will. But I mean, Rangers, when you look at that team, if you can call upon Jack and Davis and guys like that coming in, the fact that points were dropped and the motivation will be high, I just think Rangers will be. I'll be very surprised if they don't win the game.
So just get score predictions off you before. I've got one last thing I want to ask before we wrap this up. But first, I'll get Jordan score prediction.
3-0.
Cammy?
I'll go 1-0 Hadji. That seems to be a kind of classic scoreline from this season at Ibrox. So I'll go 1-0 Hadji.
I'm going to go 2-0. Right, so finally, and this just came to me just now thinking about this. 10 games to go. Perfect 10? Possible?
Possible. Possible. Anything's possible. I think for me, I'd be more happy, firstly with the title, but then going unbeaten. I think that would be a monumental achievement. Like, seriously, to go unbeaten in this season when we win 55 and they're crumbling and they're kind of 10 in a row chase or whatever. I think that it would be pretty special if we managed to go the next 10 games unbeaten. I think that if we won them all, it'd be even better, and we just kind of totally like prance to the title. It'd be very impressive. But just going unbeaten is enough. I think that once we get past that Parkhead Old Firm, if we're still unbeaten, then I think we're on for it, because I think that the players have got that to fight for. You know what I mean? And maybe it depends on what happens in Europe as well. You know, because then you're saying, would you sacrifice an unbeaten season for a proper goal in Europe? You know, it's difficult thing to balance, but I think a perfect 10 maybe, but an unbeaten season for me would be enough.
Yeah, I think it's also, as you also pointed out earlier on there, Cammy, I mean, the whole point is that the games get harder, you know, and more consistently difficult after split and stuff. So I think there are some difficult games and stuff coming up. So I think it would be a source of disappointment for, although they probably wouldn't admit it, certainly not at this point, it'd be a source of disappointment for the coaching staff and the players if they didn't go unbeaten, haven't made it this far, because it's a, you know, monumental effort to get to this point. So I think that'll be, I think 10 wins. Look, given the run that Rangers went on earlier in the year, it is obviously possible, and there was that run of really difficult away games, Celtic Park, Pittodrie, and was it Easter Road? There was that real, you know, where they were in the space of 3 weeks or something like that. And they came through all those. So it's definitely possible, but I think it's more looking towards that unbeaten run. And it's also genuinely, once the league is won, it's going to be harder to keep that up. If the league is won earlier, it's going to be hard to keep the momentum and the sort of hunger and stuff like that. But yeah, I think unbeaten is what the target will be with the league. So I think that's definitely possible.
Magic. Well, that's all we have time for this look ahead to the Kilmarnock game this weekend. Remember to like and subscribe. We're getting closer and closer to 5,000, so thanks everybody that's subscribed so far. We'll be back with more videos during the week, and thanks for watching.